leader, organizer, mom, a servant of the community, a former law enforcement officer, a person that is as credentialed as a person could be on the one hand, but also is held in the highest esteem by everybody in the community, people on the left and people on the right. She's known for integrity. And so I'm pleased to have a conversation with her, one that's long overdue, that I think I'm going to enjoy and hope you will enjoy as well. She heads a program called A Mother's Love, and they've been on the front line, on the street, advocating for the interest of families, of children, of women in our community. And it's work that is so critically important now more than ever. Let me, Lisa, thank you for being here. Let me start with Brother Ron Buford. Ron, how you doing? Unmute your mic for me. How you doing, man?
I am blessed and doing well today.
A taste of Rondo. Give me the story. What's going on over in Rondo?
Well, to take it back real quick, a little bit of history. The current building right now that the Taste of Rondo operates out of used to be the Legion. And when the Legion was shut down and pretty much taken over by the city, it was purchased by actually Charles Carter, who's the actual owner of it. I'm a partner in the business. Purchased by Charles Carter and another partner of his. We ran it as the Lex, which was kind of an event center. We did birthday celebrations there. We had, what do you call it, any kind of baby showers or any just, small events. But we realized that we couldn't continue running that business that way because it was just too expensive to keep the lights on. And for the amount, little amount of money we were charging the community to rent the space, it just wasn't worth it. So we couldn't open up a bar there because St. Paul was no longer approving any kind of liquor license to any kind of establishments within the residential community unless it was going to be a restaurant. Mm-hmm. We said, okay, let's open up a restaurant. We went through a number of different names, and then we finally came to the Taste of Rondo. I said, this would be perfect because our community really needs something to kind of bring back, to remember what Rondo used to be prior to I-94. We need to also try to open up a Black business within the community because we've become gentrified, for one. And so we know there was a number of Black businesses that have had to close. And so we said, let's open up a restaurant and try to give back to the community in terms of providing a eatery, a space that feels like home, where the community could come and enjoy a good time and not necessarily have to worry about any kind of riffraff or any kind of that element that we definitely try to keep out of the building. And so we came up with Taste of Rondo, went through the process with the city. It was a long, sometimes painstaking process, especially to acquire a full service liquor license as well, which, by the way, first Black-owned restaurant in St. Paul to be able to obtain a full liquor license.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And we thought that was very important for us to be successful as a restaurant. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of opposition, but we fought through it. We did everything that we needed to do in terms of working with the community organizations. And so we have to thank folks like Rena Moran, Mr. Marvin Roger Anderson, Debbie Montgomery, a lot of the illustrious folks from St. Paul, as well as Minneapolis, that really kind of helped us push this through. So our hats go off to them. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do an appreciation day for them as well. So here we are after 4 or 5 years of putting all this together. Man. And, we were planning on opening up last year. Of course, with anything that you open up, especially with restaurants, you run into delays, you run into unforeseen circumstances. Mm-hmm. And so then the pandemic hits. And we were like, you know what, we're still moving forward with this. We are not going to, delay it any longer because we've been waiting on this for a long time. And in a sense, it was kind of a blessing to open up within the pandemic versus being open last year, where we might have had to shut down, halt all business, and you're kind of already in a financial element that you would be used to, and then all of a sudden it's cut off. Mm-hmm. So us opening up during the pandemic was actually kind of a blessing in disguise to a degree.
And it
We
also allows you to scale up your
exactly.
menu and your services
Yep. Yep.
and do that in a way that's really intentional, I think.
Exactly. Gives us the opportunity to kind of really understand what our audience, our customer base looks like. And not only that, we went through some growing pains, and we're still, have a few that they're getting far and fewer in between. But it's an opportunity for us to really fine tune the services, the quality of the restaurant. So next year, hopefully, this pandemic will settle down some. We'll make some other changes, some other additions to the restaurant that are coming. That we'll have a grand opening next year.
What's the menu like? What's on your menu? What's your forte?
Well, it's a combination of primarily soul food, but we do add American fare in there as well, like burgers and Philly cheesesteaks, but with our own little twist to it. But we have for Southern fried buttermilk chicken, chicken wings, shrimp etouffee, shrimp and grits, catfish, Southern fried catfish. Um, we also offer some bomb peach cobbler for desserts and a couple of other desserts that our illustrious chef Don Brown certainly does their job in that kitchen making these desserts. So everything is made directly right there in the restaurant. So homemade or right in house. And man, come on over. You'll be satisfied when you leave. That's for sure.
What are your hours?
Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Mhm.
Saturday and Sunday, we're open for breakfast from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then this Sunday, we're actually changing our Sunday hours for breakfast 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. in order to basically provide a brunch service. And then we close at 10 p.m. On Saturday and Sunday as well.
Does your venue have music at all, or
Oh yeah, we got. If you can look in the background picture, you see those little those are speakers. And
okay?
so we play blues, we play a little bit of R&B, some jazz. So yeah, we definitely have that. We have live music from time to time. As a matter of fact, we'll have Cold Sweat performing this Friday, and we also do, starting to do karaoke. So we're starting to look at putting in other featured events in there, just so we can provide that entertainment element for our audience as well.
What's been the reception so far? What kind of feedback are you getting? I mean, even good, bad, and indifferent, because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to always have complaints
Oh
that you
yeah.
have to respond to. But I'm suspecting that most of what you got is all praise and all
It's been
positivity.
it's been an overwhelming positive response
Mhm.
without a doubt. People just love the environment, the core of the restaurant, the ambiance, the feel when you come in there. I've heard many feedback responses where they felt like they were at home, where they felt like it was a place, if they weren't originally from the Twin Cities, but a place that they can relate to back home from wherever they came from. The service, been saying, has been top notch, quality of food, as well as the amount of food that you get. So overall, positive responses and feedback.
You have a takeout product now because of COVID. Do people come
We
and
do.
take out or
Yeah,
eat in
yep.
the indoor and outdoor seating, or just indoor?
Indoor and outdoor seating. We have a patio that right now currently seats a total of 16 people between four seat chairs, but we plan to expand that patio probably next spring sometime.
Hmm.
I mean, it's larger than that. It's just the cemented area
Hmm.
is what covers the four tables, but we have plenty of space to expand it to probably, I'd say, another maybe 10 to 15 tables. So
Wow.
yeah, so we're looking for to do that next year. We do offer takeout. You can call in, place your order, and come and pick it up. And we'll be launching online ordering here pretty soon too, within the next couple of days. And delivery through Bite Squad is in the works as well.
Okay, great. Ronald Buford, what's your own background? How did you come to this business, and what other businesses are you in?
Well,
What do you bring to the table here?
what I bring to the table, okay. Well, I've actually kind of connected with Charles Carter, like again, the owner, through when I was president of Rondo Avenue Inc. And so that's kind of when we were working together and utilizing what Rondo Avenue Inc. had already kind of created within the Rondo community to kind of help us push this through. And so he and I got together, and from day one, I worked with him, promoting the Lex and having events at the Lex. And then when we decided to move to a restaurant, stayed on board and then worked with him to try to get this restaurant pushed through. And my background is that I do business development, I do marketing and promotions through my company, PR3 Enterprises, LLC.
Great, great, great. Well, let's have you make the invitation again. You can give people your phone number, your address, and invite people to show up and enjoy a taste of Rondo.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. So we are again located at 976 Concordia Avenue in St. Paul. Our website is tasteofrondostp.com. Again, it's tasteofrondostp.com. You can call us at 651-348-2615 to place your takeout orders, or if you have any other questions, again, that number is 651-348-2615. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. So please come check us out. And we welcome all feedback. We welcome all feedback. We respond to any kind of negative feedback. We respond to the positive feedback as well, just by thanking you for your recommendation or thanking you for your kind words. And then if there's any feedback where people did not have the experience they anticipated, we do what we can to get you to come back and try us again.
That sounds like good business to me. Ronald Buford, thank you so much and best of luck. I'll be calling my order in today probably.
There you go. There you go.
I'm
Thank you
glad
for
to
having us.
have
We
this
all
connection.
appreciate you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
I'm
all
gonna check. I'm gonna check you out, and I'm gonna
all right.
invite everybody else to check you out as
Okay.
well, because I'm
Appreciate
so
that.
proud of what you're doing, and what you're doing as an entrepreneur is
Mhm.
just so absolutely important for our community and for our people.
Right.
So I want to just give you mad props and a lot of appreciation for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hang
Thank
around
you.
as long as you're able to. I'm going to connect with my sister,
Yep.
Lisa Clemens here.
Oh, I
Lisa,
hang on.
how you
Yeah, I'll hang
doing?
on. Yep.
Lisa, unmute your mic if you can, Lisa. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm good, and I'm excited to go take my team to his restaurant.
See, yep,
You
there we
see,
go.
I'm sitting here writing everything down as he speaks, and we will be going there.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it, and that's how we support each other. Well, Lisa, you've been supporting the community a long, long time in all kinds of ways. I'd say primarily people see you as a beacon of what responsible activism is. But you represent really a movement of people, not just yourself. Yourself is enough. But I can tell you that around you and enabled by you, a whole community of engagement is happening, and you bring energy that comes from. I know your predecessors, your mom, warrior. You got.
Yeah.
I know one of your brothers. I'm sure you got, but the one I know is a good friend of mine. You got one. He's a great guy, and I think that greatness has to be coming from both his association with you all's mom, but also with you, him with you. So let me ask you to tell people what a mother's love is, first of all. And over the course of this conversation, I want you to track your development as a professional, as an organizer, and as a leader in our community. What your vision is, what drives you, and where it comes from, and what stops you from time to time, what challenges really test your mettle, right? And I know, like everybody, there must be days where you say, I can't do this anymore. Maybe not, but I'm going to ask you that question, right? And what I do know is that if you ever had a day like that, you always come back the next day. You stay on the course, you stay in the fight. And I think that is absolutely exemplary and wonderful. So let me start with asking you about A Mother's Love, what the organization is. And before we're done, we're going to make sure we talk about the work that you and I both are doing in conjunction, and Al, in conjunction with Dr. Breveda Akinsanya, to support the African American Child Wellness Institute and their strategy to provide crisis counseling for people impacted by COVID-19. So first of all, A Mother's Love.
So, Al, I'll tell you, a mother's love is, I have five sisters. Well, four. I'm the fifth. And I have one living brother and one who passed just before his first birthday. So we just love our one living brother so much. But I always go to different meetings or different announcements that the mayor or the governor or anyone is saying, and they always talk about black men, black boys, which I'm happy about because I'm the mother of a black boy and the sister of a black man and a daughter of a black man. But they never talked about women, black women, and our black daughters. It was as if we were non-existent.
Hmm.
And it's as if they didn't understand that a lot of us are single black mothers raising black boys. So I pulled together a grassroots group of African American women with all different backgrounds that has experienced life and a lot of the things that we encounter from mothers in the community. So
Mhm.
we came to the table, and that's how A Mother's Love was born. I wrote up this whole program, this training program, and what our mission was, and that was to uplift um, the African American mother.
Mhm.
And in doing that, uplift the African American daughter and our son, and to support our black men. And as that was 6 years ago, maybe seven now. And Al, I tell you this, I could not get any support being an African American woman trying to do a boots on the ground organization in the community. But Chief Arredondo and Deputy Chief Art Knight called me one day 3 years ago and said, "We need A Mother's Love. Can you help us?"
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we moved our organization forward. Before I was doing everything out of my pocket. They found some money through the International Chiefs Association, and from there we've been just working nonstop. Oh,
And
I need to say we decided that we needed fathers and black men to be part of it because we were dealing with our African American boys and our African American men, and we wanted to show.
I think we
I'm
lost your,
sorry, my brother keeps
okay.
trying to call me. We had to work together in a partnership in order for us to make the family whole.
So what specific things did you do to start with when you began launching the organization? Did you have programs, or was it a question of being a presence, being a witness, and being a resource to people in community?
Well, we started out with the 8 weeks of training, talking about the basic things that most people take for granted, like resume building, how to dress for success, how to interview, how to be a renter living in a homeowner's community, the basic things, how to budget, how to shop, basic things that everybody takes for granted that all women know. So we
And
started out doing 8 week classes, small classes, but 8 week classes. And when we actually came out into the community to do boots on the ground work, that's when the chief and deputy chief invited us to come and be downtown. And that invitation was based on so many young women being downtown fighting or downtown at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with their little kids, and so they wanted us to talk to them and find some better alternatives for them. And we did really good. We're very successful. And I said what I liked about the police when we were downtown is if A Mother's Love came to the scene and if there was something we said, we got it, we can handle it. They actually stepped aside and let us do that work
wow.
with the person that was in trouble downtown.
uh, those basics for your 8 week course, I think people take those things for granted, but as you said, we'd all be surprised at how many of us don't have training, don't have knowledge, have insufficient knowledge, or have the wrong message altogether, completely wrong understanding because we got it from somewhere that didn't make sense or we didn't get it, period. So while we say, dressing for success is something that people need to do, some people don't have a concept. If you say writing a resume, don't have a concept. What is a resume? For what?
Right.
And things like, how you approach being an effective renter in a community that holds renters as second-class citizens, right? and
Exactly.
views renters as suspects and not as neighbors and residents. So all those obstacles are there, and you're able to sort of bring people into understanding both the environment they're in and ways to be effective as residents of community, as parents, and beyond that. Any stories of how that worked in your classes that you did? So I'm sure you must have some wonderful memories of somebody's light bulb going on or somebody having
Right.
an
Well,
aha moment, you know?
well, it was amazing that, a lot of women wanted to learn how to plant gardens. And
Okay.
I'm scared of worms and everything in the garden. So we were able to bring in people who could talk to them about that. There were a lot of women who said they wanted to know how to clean up their credit. So we were able to bring in a person that taught them how to get things off of their credit report that
Hmm.
they that had been hindering them.
Hmm.
So a lot of people weren't able to even rent because of some issues in their background. So we were able to help them through the process of getting things expunged from their record. It just, I don't know, when you sit and you talk to women, when you
Hmm.
really, really talk to women and daughters, you learn that um, there's a reason for some of what you're seeing in the community happening, but all of it's not their fault. Some of it is they just were ill prepared for life, and that's not to shine a bad light on their mother or their parent. That's never the case. That just meant somebody didn't take the extra time
Hmm.
that was needed, because we stay so focused. And this is, I promise you, this is not in a negative way, but we do stay more focused on Black men and Black boys. And there's a reason for that too, because of what's happening with them in society, whether it be in the community or by the police. But a lot of things are happening to our young girls and our mothers as well. So we talk about sex trafficking with them, because not and most often our young Black girls are sex trafficked by young Black males or older Black males.
Hmm.
So we talk to them about self-image issues, and we did a summer program with girls, and Al, it still makes me sad to think about it. We asked them to do a mask and to say how you feel on the inside and what you show on the outside. And
Hmm.
the things they wrote inside, I'm look like a white girl, or my hair is snappy, or I'm ugly. And when you ask them where they got that from, a lot of times they were saying it's what my mom calls me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we did a program at North Commons Park where we actually brought mothers in and put them in the audience and put the daughters up on the stage. And you talk about some crying in the room. And we
Hmm.
didn't just invite Black mothers, we invited women and
Hmm.
mothers. Because my belief is, whether you bore a child or not, you are a mother. You
Hmm.
mothered somebody, you helped some young person along. So
Hmm.
being in the room was a diverse group of people, including a Minneapolis female officer.
Hmm.
And it wasn't a dry eye in the room, listening to how our young girls say, we feel like no one cares about
Hmm.
us.
Hmm. How old were the young women that you had on the presentation on the panel? What age range?
But they were teenagers up to the age of 16. I
Okay.
know one was 17. So they
Okay.
were 14 to 17. But when we did the classes in the summer, it went as low as 8 years old, because parents asked us to please let my daughter be part of that.
So
And then we worked in a partnership with the hospitality house.
tell me what 8, 9, 10, 12, 13-year old Black girls are going through. What are they feeling?
The
Because,
body images for sure, self-esteem images, um, moms. In some cases, we had young girls whose moms' boyfriends creeped them out, if you understand what I
hmm.
mean.
Hmm.
A lot of them had experienced domestic violence in the home, and those were things we asked them, if we could talk to your mom about anything, what would it be? And it would be things like, her boyfriend creeps me out. Her boyfriend looks at me. I wish her and my dad would fight, or I wish if I could talk to her about something in private that she didn't share it with everybody.
Hmm.
So it was some honesty moments.
Hmm. And so when they have these feelings that they've expressed to you, what's happening in their ability to navigate day to day in school or in the summer with their peers? I mean, I raised the question because I was at an event over at North Commons a couple of years ago. It was a 3-on-3 basketball event day. And they had, the cops were there and the fire department was there. It was a nice thing. But then at one point in time, I saw a bunch of kids. I'd say they were 13, 14-year-olds, boys and girls. And it seemed like out of nowhere, it was in the afternoon, they started playing. I'm thinking that when I was a kid, you might have played tag, but they were not playing tag. They took off big belts with buckles on them, and the girls were hitting the boys with belts, like, swatting them. And then the boys would hit the girls. I said, what is this? What's going on? Is this some kind of new, energy between black boys and black girls? This was violent, and they seemed to be laughing at it, laughing with it. Have you seen that, or was I just looking at the stuff the wrong way?
I've never seen that, but it may just be something someone was doing on social media, because that was another thing we talked about, is the influence of social media and all the things that people are trying. And so our young girls are trying the same things. But, Al, when you're talking about even that, we have this big issue with our men allowing our women or encouraging them to physically fight in the community so that they can videotape it.
Mhm.
I mean, where we should be believing our young men and our young brothers would be protecting our young women. On some levels, they exploit them as well.
Hmm. And so it gets you back to the whole circle of what, growing in family are all about, because as you said, it's mothers and fathers that are raising the children, too often mothers rather than fathers raising the children. And then some of the sons they raise and some of the daughters they raise end up repeating some negative, non-productive behaviors. And that creates an intergenerational chain of, not being healthy, well, and kind of being kept at the margin. What do you think about that?
I have a theory about that.
Mhm.
Because I believe that we, meaning African American mothers and all mothers, we coddle our sons and we raise our daughters.
Hmm.
We make our daughter, people always say girls mature faster than boys. And my question is always, is that really true? Or do we make them mature faster than boys? We make them wash the clothes. We make them give the baths. We make them babysit, which is preparing them for what? Motherhood. We
Responsibility, yeah.
Right, we make them look pretty. And who are we making them look pretty for? Boys. We show them how to dress, and at some age, we allow them to dress in a more provocative way because that's the fashion. But what we don't do with our boys is oftentimes our boys leave home, meaning us, and move in with their girlfriend, who may later be their wife or the first girlfriend. But we don't prepare them to be good fathers and good men. Not all of us, some of us do. But we don't invest the same energy in preparing them for life as we do our daughters. We prepare our daughters for the next guy they go to, but we don't prepare our sons for the next woman they go to outside of us.
So what do we do about that? What can we do? And I see Brother Ron, you're here. Jump in the conversation. Thank you for being around. And I'm sure Lisa won't mind hearing your point of view or reaction to this conversation as well.
Oh, I would love to.
Mm-hmm. And so what do we do? What do we do about that, Lisa? How do we educate all of us, moms, dads, granddads, grandmoms, to sort of see things and do things differently? How do we teach, both preach and teach healing in our families and in our children?
I think we'll remove gender from the way we raise our kids. So everything that my daughter needs to know about life, my son should know about life. That's how my mom did it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we needed to learn how to cook and wash clothes and sweep the floor and watch the kids, my brother had to do exactly what we had to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think, and mothers, I think, need to stop closing fathers out. So if the father's not in the home, stop closing him out of raising those kids because he's not your dad. He's the kid's dad. So whether he's paying child support to you or not, those doors to him and his kids should not be closed. Now, there's also the other side of fathers who just don't want to be in their kids' life.
Mhm.
But I don't think any mother should help make that a reality
Okay.
because it actually really does take two parents, whether you're in the same house or not.
Mhm.
It takes two parents to raise kids.
Mhm. Mhm. The um, working with the police department, you are a former law enforcement officer with
Yes,
both Minneapolis and with, I think, the Minneapolis Housing Authority.
yes.
Uh,
Well,
talk about
we ran a police team out of Minneapolis Public Housing, but we were still Minneapolis police
police.
officers.
Okay. Talk about your career in law enforcement, if you would. How did you decide and when did you decide to enter the field and what was your experience as a law enforcement officer? And first of all, thank you for your service as
Thank you.
a sworn officer, but I thank you even as much and more for what you're doing right now.
Well, what I'm doing right now, the police department made me want to do this because I really did say I didn't want to put another kid in the back of a squad car. That was
Mhm.
important for me when I left there. But I wanted to be a cop since I was 7 years old.
Ah,
I was 7.
what gave you
So
the
my
idea
mom,
that you wanted to be a cop? Why did you want at 7 to decide to be a cop?
so my mom went to court when I was 7 to get child support from our dad,
Hmm.
and he opted to go to jail than pay. So there were some white police officers in the courtroom at the time. And I remember my mom sitting in the living room in the dark crying, and we're the kids, and we're just peeking around the corner like, why is she crying? And there was a knock at the door. It was Christmas Eve. And there was a knock at the door, and they said police. And I remember thinking clearly, what did she do in court? They finna take my mom to jail. And so my mom opened the door, and there's these three white police officers with this huge box. And in the box, they had every fixing you could have for Christmas dinner and one gift for each one of her kids. They
Wow.
were in court that day and saw what happened. My mom crying, broke down in court, and they wanted to make sure that we had a good Christmas.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting on the floor, and I still love this smell to this day of green peppers and onions cooking on the stove, sauteing. And I remember my mom making this food, and I said, I'm going to be a policeman when I grow up.
Mm.
And she told me I couldn't because police were men.
Mhm.
And she said, I mumbled under my breath, I'm going to be a policeman when I grow up. And some things happen in adult life, watching my brother get beat up by the Minneapolis police. And I decided, I could never do it. And I talked to Chief Boza. On 2 occasions, he asked me to join.
Mhm.
I met Leo Johnson, an awesome, awesome Black officer, when I went to North High. And I started thinking, okay, not all cops are bad,
Mhm.
just these guys that beat up my brother.
Mhm.
And so I joined.
Mm.
Happiest day of my life. My brother told me he was not coming. I'm not coming down there. I don't care if you're going to be the police. And I watched that door out. When I finished rookie school and I was standing up there to get my badge pinned on me, I watched that door. And who walks in that door but my big old tall brother, Al Flower. And that's it, yeah.
Mm. How long were you on the Minneapolis Police Department?
I stayed sworn for 13 years, sued the city twice for harassment and racial bias. So when people think I'm just loving the police, no, it's not true.
Mhm.
My mother raised us to not put everybody under one umbrella.
Mhm.
And because I know the good inside and the bad inside, I
Mhm.
choose to work to build bridges between the police department and the community, especially the Black community. I don't choose to continue to burn them. So
Mhm.
people mistake my pro policing for something other than what it really is. And that's me knowing that there's good in there.
Mhm.
And that, if I may say, that's very important too, because a lot of police get a lot of bad rap because there are good police. And just me working with Rondo, I made strong relationships with a lot of St. Paul police officers and still have strong relationships with them today. And so I'm glad that you said that, because that is very important for people to realize and understand. There's a few bad apples that really tarnish the reputation of the police that are really out there doing good.
Well, when you mentioned Deb Montgomery, I knew you were in good hands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Bill Finney in the
Bill
crowd over
Fenton,
there.
I know
Yeah,
them all. Yep. Know them
yeah,
Oh,
all.
yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
So
Well, Ronald, that as a community, we have to be intentional in watching for the spark that a 7-year-old child expresses
right.
about being a first responder. It could be being an EMT. It could be being it could be being a firefighter or a police officer. It could be in being a soldier, or some other area. But I think that we need to cultivate our antenna as adults and as parents, so that as our children express even a curiosity, help them examine it,
Mm-hmm.
and look at it and encourage them. They may not have to be an officer. You ended up being one, but to have encouragement that these are possibilities for you is a good idea.
Right.
I'm a veteran, and I liked it before I went in, and when I was in, I wasn't particularly happy about being in uniform, because by that time I had become, in my mind, more politically aware,
Mm-hmm.
and my political sentiment aligned more with the movement than with the
Right.
military. So I
Right.
found
Mhm.
myself in a place of personal conflict where my conscience said one thing, but I had already made an agreement uh, that I was going to serve, and so I ended up serving, but I had conflict the whole time. I'm
Right.
glad
Right.
I got through it, and now I tell people that you can work through any of the contradictions that are out there, but focus on what you're trying to do, where you're trying to
Mhm.
go, and the benefit that
Right.
you can be to yourself, your family, to your community, and to humanity. And that even if you don't like something in an institution, you can lay back and throw bricks at it, or you can get with it and get in it and try to change it. And
Right.
so I think that's my attitude: is how do we get and take and bring our voice to the table,
Right.
so that we help create a menu, a process, a pathway that reflects our sensibility, our history, and that through which we co-create a future that allows us to walk with dignity and
Mm-hmm.
with success and prosperity and with sustainability. That's what I think.
Right.
That's what you're doing in business, Brother Buford. And I think that's what you're teaching, Lisa, is how do our people become whole, self-reliant, self-sufficient, and in touch with their own basic, intrinsic, God-given dignity. How do you become the best you can be? Does that make sense to you, Lisa? Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And
And so,
if I can add to that, and the one thing that we need to do is we need to pass it on to our generation coming behind us, and because that's real important. I have a strong concern about the generation that follows us. They need some guidance. There's a lot of guidance that they need, and I'm really fearful for what they're going to be faced with when they get, our age, or even 10, 20 years younger than me now. I may not look that old, but I just know that our younger generation, they really need some guidance, and I try to do that by mentoring a couple of young boys myself,
mhm,
just to really pass on knowledge that I have now that I wish I had when I was their age.
mhm.
Bottom line,
Right.
and I know this will make a whole lot of difference if we get more of us brothers and sisters that at least take on one person under your wing and kind of show them the way.
What about that, Lisa?
I agree with him. I think part of what I'm seeing in this generation, I love the fighting spirit in them,
Mhm.
but I'm seeing them being fed nothing but negative,
Mhm.
negative, 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 and especially when it comes to the police, just all negative.
Mhm.
And I think that it's time for them to be able to see the other side. And I'll give you this example. And people should be angry with the police. Don't
Yeah,
misunderstand me. But
exactly.
there are good things that the police do in the community. And those are the videos that people don't like to share. And
Right.
if they're doing good, people want to say, oh, they just did it for the camera. I don't think so.
Mhm.
You don't, I promise you, this is not the easiest job in the world, but
Mhm.
it's not the hardest either.
Right.
Mhm.
It's rewarding many, many times when you save that life, or when you can just go take a group of kids who may be being taken from child protection and stop and buy them something to eat, get them some money, just to, it's so rewarding. I don't know how to tell anybody differently. I
Well,
had my bad experiences in the police department, but
let
what kept me there for 13 years were the good things that I
me,
was able to do in the community.
let me ask you to do two things under the category of bad experiences. Talk about what experience you had that led you to make a lawsuit against the city. What experiences did you have that compelled you to challenge your employer in the court of law? That's one. Second, though, as an officer in the community, uh, were there times that you had second thoughts about making that decision? Were there times that you were afraid for your own health and well-being and your safety, and then at the same time, in the sense of balance, talk about the times that something happened, something you did or were able to do that made the whole world seem right, because your being there at that moment was the key, the missing piece to somebody's salvation or redirection. So, talk about both sides of this coin.
So for the lawsuit against the city, when I first joined the department, Al, there was an awesome man, and you'll know his name when you hear it. He stopped me on my first day in uniform. His name was Ray Presley.
Yep.
He was the lieutenant in the Minneapolis Police Department. My coming in day was his leaving out day.
Ah.
And he pulled me aside, and he was the first Black officer to pull me aside. And
Mhm.
he said, your name hit the street before your body did.
Mm.
All Black cops will not be your friend, and all white cops will not be your enemy.
Mm.
He
Mm.
said, police the way you should police in our community. I didn't know what he meant at the time,
Mhm.
but I learned
Mm.
what he meant at the time. So I had a sergeant and a lieutenant who, when I say harassed me, I mean harassed me.
Mhm.
And to a point where they would bring, it wasn't just me, it was other women too, but I took the brunt of it. And I think part of that was because I didn't show emotion when they were harassing me. The other women were emotional about
Mhm.
that harassment, and I was not going to show that. Now, I went down in the basement in the locker room and
Mhm.
showed that emotion, but
Mhm.
I did not show them. So
Mhm.
they would transfer me off cars, transfer me um, um, off the shifts, just a lot of just to harass me. And
Mhm.
then they ended up accusing me of sending hate mail to Black officers.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
And that was a no-no for me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I love John Locke. He was the chief at the time. John Locke said, you have not shown me anything that would convince me of that from her. She has no
Mhm.
problem telling anybody how she
Mhm.
feels. But I think I
Mhm.
thought I sent hate mail to Black officers. There were some Black officers who were not supportive of me, but the
Mhm.
overwhelming majority was. And the only statement I always made to everybody, I just always think I'm over this. But the only statement I made to everybody was, I'm going to win because I'm telling the truth.
Mhm.
So the FBI was the initial investigator, allegedly. But everything they were fed against me came from the Minneapolis Police Department. So the federal government closed their investigation. They tried to indict me. They closed their investigation, and I haven't talked about it in so long. They closed their investigation, and the Minneapolis Police Department asked them to change their findings so that it would be in line with them. So they changed their findings somewhat, and the Minneapolis Police Department fired me.
Mm-hmm.
The Police Federation, who so many people hate, the Police Federation hired the BCA to do an investigation, an independent investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And the BCA called back and said, please tell me this lady did not lose her job. And they said, yeah, she did. The investigator said, she didn't do it. She said, and I trained the person who is the handwriting expert for the city. She should know better than to do what she did to her.
Mm-hmm.
So it went to an arbitration. Minneapolis Public Housing gave me a temporary job. I was 7.5 months pregnant. So I had no job, no income, no medical. Minneapolis Public Housing gave me a temporary job. The city tried to get them to fire me from that job.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want me to have an income.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up winning my job back with all my back pay. But, it was never really the same for me. I walked in every day with my head up high, my shoulders straight, but my heart was broken.
Mm.
My heart was broken. But I wasn't there for them. And I had to realize I wasn't there for them. I was there for the community, the people I served. And those were the people who were supportive of me. Those people raised some funds for me, while I was fired. But so I came back to work and the harassment didn't stop. It just didn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the lieutenant's list. I had gotten promoted to sergeant before they fired me. I was on the lieutenant's list, and one of the lieutenants said he would not retire until the list died because he did not want me to have his spot as a lieutenant. So for 2 lists that I was on, they let the list die just so they wouldn't promote me. So I left the department as a sergeant. I never got the opportunity to be a lieutenant. But what I loved most, Al, was when I got out of a squad car, whether I was just an officer or a sergeant in uniform, the community stopped
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and looked.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever they were into that the cops couldn't handle, when I drove up and got out of that squad car, I'm 5'9", so you can imagine you go long leg. The community would pause like they could not believe a Black woman was there in uniform. So that in itself always made me feel so good.
That's a wonderful story.
That's powerful, yeah.
And so I tell people that I interview, Lisa, sometimes people are hesitant to do interviews and stuff like that. And I tell them, well, really, interview is you telling your story, but on the one hand, really isn't about you. This is about some 7-year-old hearing this story, right? And because this 7-year-old girl or boy heard this story, saw this interview, they put themselves on a pathway to their destiny and their bounty, right? And so that's why I love talking and doing these interviews, because we have so much to share, and these stories are so rich and so real, and so I'm just so glad you're able to share it, Lisa, and glad you've brought that fierceness of heart and that fierceness of character. And you operate in the middle of the middle. I mean, you're not on the edge of anything. You're at the center of everything all the time. That's why you have so many critics, but you also have so many people that know and trust you and your work, And so
I was blessed. I really was blessed, Al, that, Lieutenant Presley was right when he said all Blacks wouldn't be my friend in the department and all whites wouldn't be my enemy. I was blessed to have, there was a point where cops wouldn't even back me up on calls because a female officer had called me cotton and buckwheat and black bee, and she ended up getting disciplined. So there were cops who would not back me up on calls. But then there was this other group of cops that was saying, we're blue, she's a cop, she's done nothing wrong. And they would come from long distances to back me up on calls. And those were white cops.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've had it from both sides. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm always in the middle, because I've seen the good and I've seen the bad inside the police department. But I believe in this chief in bringing out the good. I
Mhm.
believe in him.
Did you have any scary experiences on the job?
I've been involved in a fatal shooting,
Okay.
and 33 years later, or 32 years later, I can tell you what happened as if it happened yesterday. I still lose sleep over it. I
Mhm.
still feel a level of PTSD over it. Every time there's a police involved shooting, it just comes back to me like it was yesterday. I've had incidents where I've had physical fights out in the community,
Mhm.
but I've also had calls where I can go and say, "Stop fighting. Just turn around. Let me handcuff you and let's walk over here and talk about it." And
Mhm.
those people have complied.
Mhm.
But I'll
Mhm.
tell you, if I can tell you this one story, I stopped this car downtown by Metro College,
Mhm.
Minneapolis Community College, and I stopped this
Mhm.
guy. And this is how you can mistake your day and their day. But this car kept circling around, and I'm like, why is he over here by Lauren Park area? So I did a traffic stop to find out, are you lost? What's going on? And I stopped him, Al, and I got out of the car and I walked up to his car, the black male driving, and he said, "What the F you stopping me for?" And he said it with so much anger. And I
Mhm.
said, I said, "I'm gonna walk back to my squad car and we're gonna do a do-over. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
come back up to your car again and let's see if we can do a do-over." So I went back to my squad and I came back up again and he said, "I'm sorry."
Mhm.
He said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even snapped off like that." I
Mhm.
said, "I was just coming to ask you if you were lost. Do you need some help or anything? Because you've been circling around and this is my patrol area." He said, "I just got out of prison. I just got my driver's license. Nothing looks familiar to me anymore. I have no idea where I am."
Mm.
He was looking for that very college that he kept passing
Mhm.
and didn't realize it because he wanted to go register for some classes. But in that
Mhm.
quick instant, he and
Mhm.
I could have had a problem.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So you have to
Wow.
sometimes just take yourself out of that, because I may have gotten to him on his worst day and
Mhm.
I didn't know that. Or he may have gotten to me and I just came off of a baby dying, which I had plenty of those. And he may not know my emotions are this high right now. So don't start with me. So
Mhm.
us having a do-over was a perfect recipe for us to sit and talk for a little while and for him to realize that things have changed.
Well, this is wonderful just to talk about this. I want to ask you for our next interview about your experience in uh, uh, something that involved a fatality. What impact has that had on you? You mentioned PTSD, is that right?
Mhm.
PSTD.
Yes,
I'm not PSTD.
post-traumatic PTSD.
PTSD, right? So I'd like to explore that at some point in time, but not today. And if you're willing to talk about it, I would like to as well. Um, and but I want to pivot a little bit because all of this has to do with mental health. You know, and the things that you're dealing with day in and day out, both as an officer and also as an advocate in the community, is people's sense of who they are, their sense of being well or not well, their sense of being under stress, under siege, underpaid, underappreciated, you know, overwhelmed by all this news that is massively oppressive to ordinary people, and overwhelmed by sometimes what seems to be an insurmountable number of obstacles that leave you no room to breathe and no hope. But somehow we got to find resilience and hope and plow through it. And so all of that, to me, goes in part to the mental health of our people as a people and as individuals. One of the things we're working on is how we navigate that, particularly in the area of COVID-19. What are you able to tell people? How can you advise people to pursue their daily lives as best they can, but also to be mindful of the things we have to do to make sure that we're safe. You know, and are you seeing and hearing our people be responsive? We know that we are more at risk. We're kind of preloaded, as Dr. Bravada would say, because of pre-existing conditions and underlying problems we have, heart, diabetes, et cetera. So how do you talk to people now as you work with A Mother's Love and in your circles of contact?
Well, I have lupus, Al, so this is real important to me to make sure people. So we do a mask up program. So we actually go out and we have a lot of people that donate masks to us to get out to the community. And what I find in the African American community, we are starting to wear masks, but not on the level that we should. And I'm not clear why that's a problem for us. But we're out there talking and we hand out, I created some little plastic baggies and I put the COVID description of the symptoms. I put copied off like 250.
We lost your sound for a second. There we go.
Oh, that's your guy Al Flowers that keeps calling. But so we put good. That's his guy. We put gloves in there, hand sanitizer, 2 masks, and the symptoms card to let them know this is what causes COVID. And then we talk to them about COVID. And well, while you may not show symptoms, that doesn't mean you don't have it, but you could pass it to somebody in your home, especially your relatives, especially an elder relative or somebody with an illness. And we talk about even kids needing to be masked up. So we do a big mask up program. No matter what we do, we have masks with us. We have hand sanitizer. We'll go right up to people standing out on the corner. I don't even care if you're standing out there selling drugs. I always say, hey, excuse me, let me get in the middle of this right here. Let me get you hand sanitizer because you transferring something hand to hand to somebody. I saw you doing it. So you need to clean your nasty hands, and they'll start laughing. That's my way of, I guess, interrupting something they're doing and let them know somebody's watching, but also that somebody cares about your well-being.
Right.
So we walk up to anybody and just hold that conversation with them about the importance of understanding COVID.
Lisa, how can people support you and the work of A Mother's Love?
We have an email address, A Mother's Love MN, like Minnesota, A Mother's Love MN at gmail.com. But we also have a website with a donation button on it. That's A Mother's Love Initiative .org, A Mother's Love Initiative.org. And to help us, you don't only have to donate money to us. We're happy if you donate hats, blankets, scarves, tents. We've given out tents for people who are in the park. We're just happy with the support that we get from the community. Al, I promise you, there's times where we have no funds at all, and the community will always come through for us. So don't believe that it's just money we need, but we are not unhappy if you donate money.
Right,
but
right.
There's supplies that we need that we want to. We need more hand sanitizer, more gloves. We need more masks. We just want to make sure that every day that we're out there, even we're doing canvassing right now as A Mother's Love, but we're also giving out bags of COVID bags at the same time. So when we did food outreach, once the city was shut down from COVID and then from the burning and looting, we handed out masks and COVID kits because we want to make sure that the Black community especially keeps talking about it.
Okay.
If I may, Ms. Clemens, we should talk. I'd love to see about doing something like through the Taste of Rondo, if that's something that we can sit down and talk about. Okay?
Absolutely.
And if you come up with a collaboration, I'm going to say bring insight into the collaboration as well.
Not a problem.
It happened
promoting
here.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
I think we can work together. Well,
Okay.
listen, question, Ron, are people required to wear masks inside
Oh
your
yeah.
restaurant?
Yeah. We follow all COVID-19 mandates. So
Okay.
wear a mask in the restaurant. If you get up from, of course, you can't eat with a mask on.
Right.
But you get up from your table to go to the bathroom and walk somewhere else, we ask that you make sure you got that mask on.
Great. That's good to hear. Yep. Listen, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Ron Buford, to learn about the new Taste of Rondo in St. Paul, and Lisa Clemens to get a chance to go in depth with your work at A Mother's Love, and also your history as an officer of the law, as a police officer in Minneapolis here. I want to thank you, and I want this simply to be the beginning, Lisa, where you and I check in on a regular basis. Oh, you know what? We should tell people about your show, because you and your brother Al do a marvelous job every Sunday on KMOJ. Talk about your program, and I think you all are also doing some webcasts, or at least Al is, a couple of days a week. But talk about the outreach you're doing and that you and Al do together through your Sunday program.
We try to talk about what's trending, but still getting a message, especially to talk about the violence in the community. We talk a lot about the Black on Black violence in the community, because we think that should be a priority for African Americans or elected officials, but it's not. So we talk a lot about that, but we talk about COVID and current issues. Right, I haven't been on there a while because it can either be me and Al in the studio or him and a guest. Mm-hmm. So I tend to let him bring a guest in because I think it's most important. And if I need to call in, I'll call in. Mm-hmm. But we talk about conversations Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. on KMOJ 89.90 FM.
Okay, well, powerful conversation, important conversation. Make sure you put it.
The show is called Community Values Conversation. If I don't say that, I'll hear from Al.
All right. Community Values Conversation every Sunday, 1 o'clock on KMOJ 89.9, the People Station. I think that's the term we're using right now. A great station. Thank you so much, Lisa, and continued success in all your work. I'm pleased to both know you and to be partnering with you in your work, and look forward to our mutual shared success in creating the kind of community that we think our people deserve. And Ron, for your work, thank you so much as well.
Well, I appreciate it, and certainly thank you for having me again as well.
All right, take care.
Take care.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We do this every day at around 1 o'clock. And if you like it, share it to your friends, subscribe to us on YouTube, and be a part of this movement to create community in which our voices matter, our lives matter, and our victory is both inevitable and imminent. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.